than a minute. Okay, so Adora is in with us now. We are welcoming Adora to this session of KWARABUILD Tech Conference 2020. We are very stoked to witness the presence of Adora right now. And I'd like you all to know about Adora, so I'm going to read her bio. So Adora is a software engineer at Microsoft Mixed Reality based in Lagos, Nigeria. In 2018, she created a blog called Adora Hack, where she publishes articles on software engineering, productivity, and career growth. Welcome, Adora, to this session, and we look forward to learning a lot from her.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, Lagos time, everybody, because that's where I am. And I'm going to be starting right now. I'm going to be kicking off this conversation about building a sustainable personal brand. I'm trying to share my screen, but I'm not able to. So could the host help me with that so that I can see this? Thank
I can.
I still need help with sharing my screen, please. So I'm going to do this so that we can start the session of presentation. First of all, can anybody hear me? Just so that I tell them.
We can hear you, but it's not very clear.
Okay, so I'm saying that I am currently unable to share my screen. I think it's disabled or something. So please, could somebody help with that?
Hi, Adora. Please, you can now share your screen.
Hi, thank you very much. So today's session is, please, if at any point you cannot hear me for whatever reason, please let me know so that I could be more audible or try to talk slowly, regardless of whether it's as a result of the regardless of how it's as a result of how audible I am or how bad the network is. So just draw my attention to that if for whatever reason not. But
All right, we can hear you now.
okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Today, this session is going to be talking about sustainable ways to build a strong and long-lasting personal brand. And before I decide to even go deep or try and go any further into the discussion, I would want to do a quick definition of what a personal brand is. And I actually got this definition from a website called personalbrand.com. If you want to see some other definitions or some other things pertaining to personal branding, you can check out that website. But the definition on that site basically just says that a personal brand is a widely recognized and largely uniform perception or impression of an individual based on their experience, expertise, competencies, actions, and or achievements within a community, industry, or the marketplace at large. Bringing this, I'm guessing that a lot of people at this talk today are either software engineers or, in quotes, upcoming software engineers or tech enthusiasts generally. So from the concept or from the context of being a tech person, you know, a personal brand would be the perception of an individual, you know, a tech person, as like because of what their experience in the community, in the tech community, their expertise in the tech community, their achievements, the impacts they've made in the community, and all of that stuff, you know, generally. Why is it actually important to build a personal brand? Building a personal brand in today's day and age, I think is very important because whether you like to think about it or not, I like to see it as human beings now in this modern day and age have two lives, or rather have two representations of themselves, basically. In two, or rather live in two different worlds. So you can say they have two lives, they have two representations of themselves and live in two different worlds. The physical world and the digital world. It's the truth. So there's the globe, right? Which is the earth that we all live in. And there's the internet, which funny enough also kind of looks like a globe with the way they represented it with the different logos and all the different brandings they've done in the past. So you have your life as somebody living in the physical world, and you have your life in the digital world. Your digital life is basically your email, your social media, any AR, VR experiences that you normally have, and all the other different things that come with it, right? Your social media and other things like LinkedIn that I'll necessarily not call social media, your YouTube, though that is your digital presence, that's your digital life, right? And as much as we don't want to like think about it this way, whether you like it or not, subconsciously as a human being, you are already a brand just because you exist on the internet today and people see you. And if we go back to, you know, what a personal brand is, a personal brand is a widely recognized and largely uniform perception of an individual. So the fact that you are already on the internet means people already have an impression of who you are. They perceive you in some kind of way already. And you already have a brand. Now, you don't know that you have a brand. So let's look at it from the angle of, okay, you don't know that you have a brand and you're trying to get to where that point where you now out of the brand that already exists, that is not maybe as good or not, but just already exists naturally because of the presence of the internet. You want to mold and shape that brand into something that, works for you. It's important because it builds trust and credibility. For example, I'm going to use regular brands, for example. If you want to buy something as basic as bottled water and you go to a store and you see an Ever bottle and you see a second bottle that is nameless, that does not have any brand name on it, nothing at all, you would lean towards choosing the Ever bottle because you feel like you trust that, okay, this Ever brand is credible. And if anything happens to me, I can always go on Twitter and call Coca-Cola out, because Coca-Cola owns Ever, right? I can always go on Twitter and call them out and do this. But if I drink the water of a nameless brand and anything happens to me, I'm on my own because I don't know whose trousers to go and hold if anything happens to me, right? So thinking about it from that way, personal branding as well can build trust and credibility. Like when you hear somebody over time, when you see this person, this brand, you can trust that, okay, this person is an expert in XYZ, right? And also builds that kind of credibility, basically. It increases your value as a person, your perceived value. When you have a brand, because of that, a lot of people would want to communicate with you. A lot of people would want to bring you on to the different things that they're doing. And because of these different appearances that you make, I don't like to use this word exposure because of what it has become today in the society, that nobody wants to pay money anymore, everybody wants to pay in exposure. But just for the sake of this talk, I'm going to be using that word exposure, right? Because of the number of things that you've been exposed to, because of all the number of appearances that you've made, it increases your value as a person. People want to hear what you have to say. People hold you in some kind of high esteem, which is generally good for you because, for example, a lot of people would sell, so I'm going to go back to now branding items and not branding people. But a lot of people would, for example, you own a company, right? And the company is doing well, but not doing as well as people think it is because of how people perceive the brand, because of how people see the brand on social media. So it increases your perceived value, which could work for you if you know how to roll that dice properly. You can use it to control your reputation, control how people, see you, control what people think of you, control things that pertain to who you are as a person. Everybody has a reputation, right? Like I said, everybody is on the internet, everybody is in the physical. Two existences, if you want to put it that way, right? Control, regardless of how you think of it, you're already present there. Control what people now see or what you want them to think of you while you are there. Also creates more professional security. This ties back to, increasing your perceived value, as I talked about this initially. So it creates more professional security because as your perceived value increases, a lot of people want to be affiliated with you. A lot of people want to work with you. A lot of people want to do things with you that in turn secures your bag, secures your business, secures your work. Because of that kind of thing, if you're working in a top company and you've built a well-sustainable brand that profits you and also indirectly profits the company. I mean, things happen and businesses, fail, but the chances of you being more secure in your job is very high because you have a brand that works. You have a brand that works for you. And because of what you do with your brand, it's in some type of way also positively benefits the company. So no kind of person would want to let that kind of person go, except maybe you do something that's really wrong and really bad. But I'm not here to talk about that today. And in this talk, since I've talked about why I think personal branding is important, in this talk, I'm going to be covering two things. I'm going to be covering the focus areas, My neighbor has a dog, just in case. I'm going to be covering the focus areas when building your personal brand. And I'm also going to be covering a few things you can do to help build your brand. But before we get into that, I want to introduce myself. My name is Adora, and I am a software engineer. Oh my God. I am a software engineer at the Microsoft Mixed Reality team. I am a writer and a YouTuber, and my brand, basically, my tech brand is called Adora Hack. And then I have an Adora Hack blog, and I also have an Adora Hack YouTube channel. I put community builder there because the number of communities I run, they're like 5 or 4, 6, and I don't even know if I want to start mentioning all of them one by one. So I am a software engineer, a tech content creator through my tech brand, which is Adora Hack. I build tech communities, and I am a DJ as well. You can find me on Twitter at Adora Nwodo if you're trying to follow up and maybe learn more things. So now the first part of this presentation will be me talking about focus areas when building your personal brand. The first thing is perception. How do you see yourself? How do people see you? If you're thinking about building your brand, the one thing that you can actually do is go on Twitter and do like a poll, or just even ask the question randomly. When you hear my name, what's the first thing that pops up into your mind? Because asking that question and having people answer that question for you will make you realize how people see you, what people think you are. Do they think you're a front-end person? Do they think you're a back-end person? Do they see you as a product manager? Do they just see you as someone that they're not sure of what your field is? What do they see you as? Who do they think you are, basically? And you also need to know, how do you see yourself? You know how you see yourself already. You know who you are because you are doing what you are doing, and then you are like an Android developer normally. Maybe you build with React Native, for example, and you know that that's what you are, right? So that's how you see yourself. That's your own perception of yourself, because you're building a brand. And if we go back to the initial definition of what a brand is a widely recognized and largely uniform perception of a person. And there's also perception in that word, and there's perception here. What that means is that it's not only how you see yourself, but what's also important is how a lot of people in that community, in that circle, in that market see you. So you need to make sure that you are perceived how you actually want to be perceived. Another thing is appearance. First of all, you don't just need to show up, but you need to show up and shine. People need to know that you exist. People need to know that the work that you are doing is being done by somebody, and they need to know that that work is being done by you. You cannot build a very amazing Android app and push it on the Play Store and not share it. Last, it's going to have like 3 downloads. Maybe you, your daddy, and your mommy. And that's going to be pretty much it. So you need to make sure that you are sharing all the things that you're doing. You need to make sure that you are sharing all the things that you're doing. You need to make sure that you are appearing in people's faces. You need to make sure that people see you. Another thing that is important, a focus area when building your brand, is your character. I've heard a lot of things in branding about, oh, you need to have the right colors, you need to have a logo, as all of these things are nice, somebody can copy your colors. Somebody can copy your exact logo, and the only thing that will be different is the name on the logo. Somebody can copy a lot of things, but they can't copy your story because it's only unique to you. People can copy a lot of things about you, but nobody can literally be you. So you need to take that story and make it a part of your brand. Make it an integral part of the brand that you're trying to build somehow, because that's what makes you unique, and that's what could actually help your brand stay. And another thing is be authentic, right? The last thing in the focus areas for me would be authenticity. You don't want to be saying one thing, preaching about one thing, and doing another. You don't want to be saying one thing and then what you're actually saying is the wrong thing. It's okay to make mistakes and not be sure about some things, but you don't want that to be constantly what your brand is about. That when you actually say something, a lot of people go on Google and check if it's true. A lot of people start asking, is this person saying the truth? Are we sure? Are we sure? Are we not sure? Just because they are not sure that what you are saying makes sense. You need to be authentic. You need to build trust. You need to make sure that what you are saying is the correct thing. You don't want to come out one day by mistake and say that people can use CSS to build. I'm using a very extreme case here because I don't know if anybody has said this before, but you don't want to come out, you don't want to be that person that comes out to say that people can use CSS to work in the back end. You don't want to be that person. That's 100% false. At the same time, you want to make sure that what the message you're passing is authentic. Be true to your message, be true to yourself, and be true to your brand. Make people trust you, because that's the only way that, if we go back to the importance of personal branding, that's the only way you can build credibility. That's the only way that your value would increase. That's the only way for you to have a good reputation. And that's the only way for you to get professional security. Now, with all of these things that I've said in mind, how do you go ahead and build your brand? The first thing is add value to people's lives. If you are a front-end engineer, if you're a back-end engineer, if you are an Android engineer or a DevRel person or a community builder, add value to people's lives. Add value to people's lives. It's very important, because that's the only way people would want to listen. That's the only way people would want to pay attention to you, because they know that you are sharing things that help them in their careers, or you are creating open source projects that they can use, or when you go on a podcast, you are dropping words of wisdom, and anybody that actually listens to you and takes your advice does well. Or you are hosting like live Twitch, sessions where you are learning, and because it's live, people join and they learn with you and everybody grows. Whatever you are doing, however way you want to do it, one thing that is very important, the first thing, is that you should add value to people's lives. Nobody really cares about, I don't think branding is all about the numbers, how popular you are or how many followers you are. That's never the case. Value could be in terms of a blog post. Value could be in terms of a podcast. Value could be in terms of open source contributions. Value could be in terms of talks that you give to community events to help people grow. Value could be in terms of courses that you have created because you've learned something. Value could even be in terms of something as basic as a Twitter thread. When you learn something, you go on Twitter, you make a thread out of it and you go, right? And then next week you come and you do the same thing. Whatever it is that you're doing, make sure you are constantly adding value to people's lives. Think about your unique story and tell it often. I've said this thing before. People can copy your color. People can copy your logo. People can copy your name. But nobody knows your story more than you. Nobody can tell your story more than you. Find a way to tell that story into that tech brand, infuse both of them together and make something cool out of it. For example, if you're somebody that transitioned into tech from maybe fashion design, maybe you were a fashion designer before and you transitioned into tech, always make fashion part of your tech story. When you're building maybe applications for something, try and infuse what fashion was for you into that. Try and, tell the story from a fashion designer that became a techie's perspective. Because everybody nowadays is either building a brand or trying to build a brand. But you need to do things that makes yourself different from everybody else. I come online and I constantly find different ways to tell my story. It's one story, and a lot of people indirectly hear a bit about that story every day because of how I tell it. I've not been building my brand for actually up to 2 years. I've not been building a tech brand for up to 2 years because this being an active tech community person for me started in November 2018, and it's not November 2020 yet. So technically it's not up to 2 years. But I think that I have been able to, and I am still doing that. Obviously, I'm not done yet, but I think that I have been able to become somebody that people perceive as this person that I want them to perceive me as. I've been able to leave an impression on people. People like at least recognize my experience in this thing or my expertise and a few achievements that I've made once in a while in the community. And even if it's not in the community, but just in tech in general, people have recognized that just because of these few things that I'm telling you. Telling your story, your unique story, is something that is very, very, very important. Yes, because at the end of the day, you're a human being. You have the hard skills, right? You have the hard skills. You know how to code. You know how to use Vue.js with something. You know how to use GraphQL. You can spend a whole day talking about Next.js. Anybody can do that. All it takes is just to go and learn about the thing. What makes your brand true to you is the fact that you infuse your story in whatever it is that you choose to do at every single point. There's something that I really find amazing that this girl on social media did, Ugonna. I think her Twitter handle is Ugonna_T. You can go check her out if you want. She's a senior front-end engineer, right? She wanted to write an article on solid principles, as opposed to writing the basic article on solid principles that 1,000,001 people have written. She's a children's book illustrator, and she's also a designer. She made a design story out of something as basic as solid principles. Like you can be someone that does not understand object-oriented programming, but you could go over her solid principles article and you will just fall in love with things. And that's how it should be. She thought about how she could infuse her story, what she is, into the article she was writing. And that made her unique. And that made that article very unique. I don't think I've seen anything else like it on solid principles on the internet before. Right? The next thing I want to say is choose a platform where you can use your strengths and create content there. It's okay to be in many places as possible, but if podcasting is not for you, don't become a podcaster. If writing is difficult for you, as much as they encourage people to write, there are other ways to contribute. If writing is difficult to you, don't bother writing that article. If you find out that you prefer talking, you could decide, oh, I'll do podcasting and I'll do YouTube videos. If you find out that you like talking, but videos also kind of stress you out, you can be like, oh, I'll do podcasting and I'll give talks when necessary. While you are still creating things like, because as a techie, no matter what platform you choose, GitHub must always be a part of it. Because you should be writing code actively, making contributions to things, building things. So whether it's GitHub or whether it's Azure DevOps or whether it's Bitbucket, whatever you like, but actively, I would say GitHub because I feel like that's the most popular out of the many that exist. You should be actively writing code. Other platforms, like writing on LinkedIn or writing on dev.co or writing on Hashnode or writing on your own personal blog or creating video content or doing live streams on Twitch or podcasts or whatever you want. Choose platforms now, not just one, it could be multiple, but I would say maybe no more than 3, just so that you don't get into a space where you have to context switch a lot. Right? So apart from my GitHub, which is obviously a no-brainer, for me, those platforms are YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. I have an Instagram, yes, because I wanted to create one just so that I could lock my brand name. Once in a while I post there, but I'm not as active as I am on Twitter as I am there. Right? Choose, I would say at most 3. If you could do more than 3 and you could handle them and you could be as productive, no problem. But I would say generally, choose 3. Choose 3 platforms that that you can use your strengths, that you can use to your strengths, and create platforms on those create content on those 3 platforms. Also make sure that the platforms you are choosing are platforms that your target audience also uses, which brings me to my next thing. You're not trying to reach everybody. Create your own niche. As a developer, as somebody in tech, as a tech enthusiast, your niche will probably be, in the area of tech that you are. So if you're a mobile app person, for example, you should build your brand and connect with the mobile development community first. Yes, eventually you might want to reach out to more people, not everybody. So you might want to niche down first, and once you niche down, you can now branch out. But you need to start somewhere. So mobile engineer, you would want to start with the mobile community. Build a brand build a brand that speaks. When someone sees you, they think mobile developer. And then obviously, once you've niched down and you are creating mobile related content and whatever, you can now decide that you sort of want to extend your hand to other things. So you can niche down and then branch out. It's the same thing as being a T developer, where you specialize in one thing, and then when you feel like you're very good at that thing, then you can branch out to do other things and spread your wings, and it's like a letter T. So that same thing also kind of applies to brand building. So create your own niche first. Don't try and reach everybody, because there's so much competition out there that if you reach everybody, you might be like, imagine if there are 1 million people already reaching everybody and you're like the 1 million and first person. People will look at the 1 million people before they look at you. And then you'll be in that position where nobody might ever look at you. So don't try to reach everybody. Find a niche. Make sure that you are building your brand, creating your own niche and doing things there and engaging that community. And then once you grow there, then you can now decide to branch out, because you would have gotten some kind of, reputation for yourself. Next thing that I want to say is nobody would see your work unless you share it. When you write an article, post about it. When you make a YouTube video, share it. When you build a project and it's on GitHub, share it on social media. Make sure you take advantage of the already existing community that social media has. Social media on its own is already a community. Make sure you take advantage of the fact that social media has a lot of people that are just waiting for you to come and share things. So leverage that. If you don't share things, nobody would ever see it. Next thing that I want to say is think impact. Like I said in the beginning, make sure you're adding value to people's lives. Make sure whatever you are trying to do is something that is impactful for people. Make sure you're not just someone that make sure you're not just a mediocre person that people at some point get tired of because your brand message or your brand essence is just something that nobody cares about or wants to relate to. Make sure that you are somebody that people will be like, thank you for that article that you wrote. It actually helps me solve one problem I was trying to. Thank you for that video that you made. Make sure that whatever you do at every point is either helping somebody, motivating somebody, whatever it is doing, make sure that it's impacting at least one person's life. You start by one person. That one person can now go and impact 2 more people. And you can impact 2 more people. And that last is already 5. And that keeps building and growing. So that at some point, your name, your brand can even be part of some people's own success stories. So the next thing that I want to say is that you should be consistent. Don't just come and then share content on, let me use Twitter, for example. Share content on Twitter January 1st, 2020, and then disappear and come back in May. It doesn't work like that. Nobody's going to pay attention to you. You might not be someone that wants to write frequently. So like I said, sometimes Twitter threads are a way to go because articles might be far. Videos are a lot. They take a lot of resources. And maybe podcasts as well. So you might decide that, okay, I'll spend more time, like doing Twitter threads and sharing knowledge of things that I learn. That's also a way of impacting people's lives. Because guess what? Twitter already has a community on its own. People in that community can read what it is that you are sharing and can learn from it. And then that's something that is easy to do that you can do more consistently as opposed to the others. But whatever it is that you choose to do, you should make sure you are consistent. And like I said before, nobody can tell your story more than you. So in anything that you are ever going to do in building your brand, make sure that you are yourself and not trying to be somebody else. Don't try to be your mentor. Don't try to be your role model. They are different. They might have similar stories like you, but they are different people facing different realities in different locations. So it's important that you are you and you are true to yourself. And on this note, I am done with my presentation. Thank you for paying attention. I appreciate it. Are there any questions or?
So thank you so much, Adora. We really enjoyed your presentation and we learned a lot from you. I've been getting here and to be honest, I've learned a lot about developing myself. And I'm very sure our viewers also have learned so much about how to develop themselves and build a strong brand for themselves. I am sure that our viewers have questions. They have several questions that they want to ask you. And don't say and Twitter, you can become part of about 11,000 followers on Twitter. So we can join them. I'm going to join them definitely after this session. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the comment section, and I will make sure I help you ask Adora whatever you want to know. But while we are waiting for those questions, I'd like to ask my own question, Adora.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Adora?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. So from your presentation, what caught my attention most is that you manage 5 communities. Am I right? You manage 5 communities.
5. Yeah, I think it's 5.
Well, I see. I actually, I see that it's super powerful. So how do you manage this community? We'd like to learn from you.
How do I manage the communities, or how do I manage my time generally?
Yeah, 5 whole communities. How do you manage? How do you which how do you do it?
I delegate a lot of things, right? So the fact that I'm managing community doesn't mean that that's why it's a community, because it's not one person alone. That's why teamwork is very important, because you cannot leave the work for one person to do. That person is going to get burned out, and that person is going to get frustrated. So I find myself right now, quite a difficult time for me, because like not dealing with, because it's not necessarily something bad, but I have a lot of engagements at this time of the year. So I'm not as active as I even want to be in any of the communities I currently manage. But normally what I do is I do a lot of delegating. Like, you know that you are responsible for this and you're responsible for this other thing, responsible for this other thing. When it's time to either engage the community or organize an event or anything like that, you find yourself doing exactly what you're supposed to do. Another thing is properly managing my time. I've learned that over the years, maybe because of what situations I've put in my life, I've learned to manage my time properly, and I've kind of also learned to multitask as well. So I think those 3 things are things that have helped me in not only managing 5 communities at a time, but being able to juggle having a job, having a YouTube channel, and being a DJ, and being a community builder, and being all these crazy things that I am at the same time. Is the fact that I am able to delegate tasks when necessary. I don't try to do everything by myself, because it's just not possible. So I've learned to delegate tasks, I've learned to manage my time, and I've also learned to multitask in cases where it's required. I cannot hear you. I think you're muted. I cannot hear you. I think you are muted. Actually, you are muted.
Yeah, I am. Okay.
So I didn't hear the last.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes. I was talking to our viewers. Delegation, teamwork, time management. I think those are the things that our viewers need to take note of when they are trying to like switch between the different personalities, either physical or digital. So I have another question here. What do you think is the best way to tell a story, especially for somebody who is not in tech? How do you tell your story? How do you let people know about what you do?
You tell your story by sharing things that you do. I mean, if you want to tell your story, you kind of want to make sure that you're telling it to an audience. You want to make sure that people are going to be listening to whatever it is you're saying. And for you to have an audience, you need to add value. So I think the first thing you want to do is create value in some way. Like I remember initially, right? I wanted to start doing a bunch of things for the community. So like it's different now that I would probably just be on my own and then I see one DM or somebody reaching out to me that hey, there's this conference I want you to come and talk about building a brand or talk about mixed reality or talk about all these things. Initially, I would reach out. I made this, I made this, and not from and it wasn't really from the place of like, like, because I don't think like people actually beg for things like this because it's community work, it's free of charge. Do you get what I mean? But initially, you would reach out like, okay, I want to
Yeah.
help do this. I want to, maybe as a younger person in university, I think school people, I never did this, but I know a lot of school people that reach out that they want to volunteer as well. Oh, I want to volunteer for this. I want to help you with this. I want to help you organize this event. I want to speak at this, And first of all, that gives you an audience where you get to see people and meet people and interact with people that are like you in different fields, basically, right? And then from there, because you have access to an audience, you can share things and make friends and build relationships with people that you can now possibly share your stories. Another thing that happens to a lot of people is creating their own table. For example, I am the founder of XYZ community, right? It is a non-charitable organization. It is a charitable organization. It's an NGO for this, that, right? I am the founder of this Young People Association for Bankers Nigeria. Like just something very random, and you have that association. Obviously, you share a lot on LinkedIn. You go to places where the people you're trying to target are. So if you are trying to target techies, mostly you find them on Twitter, right? So you go to Twitter and then you put things about this community there. If you go to, yeah, maybe like a banker or something, I'm guessing LinkedIn, right? You go to LinkedIn and you put things about this community. You find out that people join the community. Once in a while, you can now decide to host like webinars or all these different seminars or all these, and then you can put yourself up as a speaker where you can share your, where you can share things that you learn. And like I said, you don't just share your story and be like, oh, 2 years ago I was talking during my building. Now God has blessed me. No, that's not the kind of story I'm talking about. It's more you're a tech person. How does what you like to do normally? How does who you are as a person and this your tech career that you chose for yourself? How can you merge two of them into one thing and present it in such a way that when you talk about it? I will use Prosper as an example. When he came on Oscar Open Source Festival and he came to tell that his open source story, and then he told the story of other people that open source has helped, and then he told his own story last. I don't think he started from, oh, there was a time that I was in Babcock and XYZ, and then I moved to Anako, and then I moved to Stella. That was not an important part of the story, even if it's part of his life story. So what I mean by sharing your story, you share your story in a context that matters. You're talking about open source. What in your life has, like, have you done, has an open source experience been part of that you can talk about? Then you want to maybe share an article and you're an art person. How can you bring art into sharing that article that it makes it engaging and it makes sense? You know, or you are a music person and you want to talk about, I don't know, front end development. How is it possible that music and front end can come together, and when somebody is reading it, they understand that when they say something, there's a chance that this person that wrote it, did this person have a hand in this? Just because your brand has left a mark on people that when they see something, without even saying the name of the person that they can start having guesses in their head as opposed to this thing looks like something that this. Have you not seen? Have you not seen this thing with designers? There are some times that designers, like, a bunch of designers will do stuff, and then you just bring out different prototypes, different design, and somebody will be like, ah, this yellow background, it looks like something that this guy would do. Do you get? So it's that impression that the person has left on you over time. And if you check well, if you check well, the color yellow is somehow infused in that person's story in some way, shape, or form. So it doesn't have to be literally your story. Like every single time you come and say, "Oh, I was studying accounting," and yes, once in a while you tell that story to people. But basically, an element of you should be a part of every single thing that you do. So I've answered your question, or I hope I've answered your question. Did I answer?
Okay, okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you so very much. We have two other questions. So I'm going to put these two questions so I can answer both at the same time.
Okay.
There is one from somebody on Twitter who said that when you're talking about adding value to people's lives, people think about online influencers, giveaway, and getting money, just people money. That is very to add value to people's lives. I want you to clarify that it is true. You have to be very rich to be adding value to people's lives. You have to be an online influencer to add value to people's lives. And the second one is more like, can you give advice to women instead? Women that are looking to play what advice do you have for them? So those are the two questions.
Okay, so the first one, adding value to people's lives does not have to do with you don't. So if you have money, then you are adding monetary value. But you can add value in terms of inspiration, motivation, knowledge. All of these people that create free articles for you, all of people that answer your questions on Stack Overflow, all the open source repos that you do, all the videos of the Indian people that you watched when you were in university that actually helped you understand tech before you actually came out and started practicing. All these things are value, right? There's no monetary, there's no price attached to them. But it doesn't mean that these things are not valuable. Because if it wasn't there, some things that are very easy for you today wouldn't have been easy. So it's not only about money. It's never about money. At least 50% is never about money. In things like this, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of people want to do things so that they can build a reputation and get a great job that can now earn them money. So most times before they even start doing it, they don't even have money yet. So it's never really about money. I don't know how many giveaways Sultan has done with his own money, but he's constantly adding value to people's people's lives, right? I don't know. I don't know how many giveaways Ada Nduka has done with her own money, and she's constantly adding value to the lives of women in tech. So it's never really about money for me. Like I would never say go and do giveaway, give out a free course, do a thing. Your article can help somebody. One small tweet where you explain something can help somebody. Your open source repo can help somebody. An app that you build and you push to Play Store, maybe a game, can help somebody. It doesn't always have to be monetary help. It doesn't always have to be monetary value. Their value, that value can exist in different shapes, different ways. Second thing is, what advice would I give to women in tech? I don't know exactly what you need advice for, because if you say what advice would I give to women in tech, there are many things I would want to say. And it's also almost nothing I would want to say because that question is kind of vague for me. I don't know where to address it. But I would just say, I don't know, be true to yourself. Always filter out the noise. Pay attention to important things. Filter out the noise. And if something in your gut is telling you to do something, go ahead and do it. Don't care about what anybody thinks. Because the fact that you thought about it before your insecurity setting, before your insecurity sets in, means that it's 90% correct.
So that was Adora. Thank you very much for joining us. We have learned a lot from you. And to our viewers, we thank you for viewing this session. We would like you to be like Adora and build our community. As the theme of this conference is the African Next. So we would like you to make sure that you use this message to impact your community positively. So join us in the next session. We will be 4 to 6 for women in tech. 4 to 5, sorry, for women in tech. We'll be having another session, the final session. And if you are watching us now, please tweet. Let us know what you think about the session. Let us know what you have learned, and let us know how we can improve in bringing the content to you. Thank you very much, Adora. We are very happy
Very much.
to have you here today.
Okay. Bye.
Yeah. I look forward to having you